Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Environmental Social Justice. I'm your host, Wendy Nystrom. Today, I have two very special guests. I have Susan Angus, who is the Executive Director of the Commission on Voluntary Service and Action, and Jennifer Perez, who is an Administrative Assistant Organizer and Training Coordinator for CVSA as well. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
Anytime. So you guys have a very, very wonderful organization. We're going to dive into that shortly. But first, Susan, could you tell me a bit about your background? Because you've had 50 years in service, which is extraordinary.
Yes. I often start with saying I started when I was 2 years old, but it's really not true. No, well, I actually want to give a little framework first, because people often are astounded at full-time volunteering. What is that? How can you do that? And the framework for that is that it's really not unique, and we didn't invent the concept. Full-time volunteers, if you think about it, the leaders of the civil rights movement were full-time volunteers. Leaders of the abolitionist movement, the original union organizing that was done back in the 20s and 30s. I mean, even Clara Barton was like a full-time volunteer in the Franco-Prussian War, and that led to the Red Cross. So it's, Nelson Mandela was a full-time volunteer. Yes. So, okay, but in terms of how I started, and there are like thousands of people throughout the US, maybe more, people we don't know, their names we will never know, who are full-time volunteers leading efforts that are addressing very serious, urgent, systemic problems. And they do it without remuneration because of the urgency and not wanting to wait or be tied down with restrictions. But I got started back in the 60s when I was in high school. And it was the time of the anti-war movement, the civil rights movement, the farm worker movement, you name it, and people were in the streets. And I thought at that time, let's take it to 1968, 69. Wow, things are really going to change because everyone wants change. And then the 70s came in, and the mid-70s came in, and poverty is still growing, and there's still wars going on, and industry and the good jobs are leaving the country, and wages are going down, and it turned into a service worker economy. Unions were shrinking, and this is like going in the wrong direction. And many people kind of gave up, on the movement at that point and just kind of went on with their lives. But I was very fortunate to land a job in the early 70s with a program called United Methodist Voluntary Service in New York, which is where I spent most of my adult life before we moved out here to Los Angeles. And it was a national program that promoted full-time volunteer service with grassroots organizations. And so I worked with that for several years. And it was through that job that I met and I visited all across the country, farm worker organizations of women health centers, Chicano communication centers. There's all kinds of organizations. And the minister I was working for was also on the board of CVSA. That's how I got introduced to CVSA. And after 3 years of that job, I quit to become a full-time volunteer organizer with some of the groups that I had met through that job. So that's how it started back then.
That's fantastic. That's a really impressive, just the long history that you have in working in that industry and then transitioning over to CVSA. So Jennifer, I know that you probably have not had 50 years of volunteer services, but what is your background?
Yeah, so I'll start actually by saying that I'm from LA. I grew up here, and I'm first generation. So my parents are from El Salvador and Guatemala. But I did grow up in a low-income community, and I knew of the problems that we have here. And I really was always looking for a way to solve those problems. And at the time, my parents were like, the only thing you can really do is go to college. And that's what I did. And I went to UC Santa Cruz. And I started to study earth sciences because I saw that not only do we have the problems of poverty, but I had a real concern for climate change, which all connects, right? But it was actually in college that I started volunteering with a grassroots organization out in the community that I really understood what it's going to take to solve the economic and social problems, environmental problems that we have in this country. So that's where I started. And so I started organizing with that organization, and they taught me about the Sustainable Development Goals, the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. And when I left college and came back to Los Angeles, that's when they referred me to CVSA, Commission on Voluntary Service and Action, to volunteer and continue to learn and promote the Sustainable Development Goals.
That's awesome. I mean, I got my degree in geology, earth sciences as well, but none of these things existed when I went to school. This is relatively newish. But so CVSA, you know, this organization has been around since 1945.
Right.
And it's completely independent of any government funding. So why, I mean, let's start with why 1945, because there's a little history there. And two, why no government funding, which I love.
Sure. Great. Well, it started directly after World War II. 1945, and it was originally an ecumenical council made up of representatives from about 12 different, mostly Protestant churches, also a Catholic representative and a representative from a Jewish Service Federation. But it was an ecumenical council. Their concern was there had just been this horrific war in Europe. People's towns, villages were bombed out. People were hungry, homeless, etc. And they formed it in order to recruit American volunteers and send them to live with people in Europe for the summer, and literally help people rebuild from out of the rubble. And in fact, this is the oldest one we have. This is from 1957.
Oh, wow.
It's a little brochure about volunteer your summer. But they started printing this in 1946. To, again, you know, recruit people who would spend their summer in Europe and help people build homes, build whatever was needed. And so and this is like before it was popular to volunteer abroad, you know. Now it's very popular, very common. Every college has programs. It wasn't so common in 1945, 46, 47, you know.
No.
The reason it started as independent, you might recall the Marshall Plan, which when I was in high school, we learned it was this great humanitarian program that the US government offered to Europe to help them rebuild. And CVSA started, like, as I said, in 45. The Marshall Plan didn't kick in until 47. And I didn't learn that until I was an organizer. And I thought, well, if it was started in 47 and it was a humanitarian program, but the war was over in 45, and people were hungry and homeless in 45.
Oh, yes.
This didn't like connect. And so when the people who started CVSA formed, A, they weren't waiting for the government.
Yeah.
B, they also didn't want to abide by the restrictions that did come with the Marshall Plan, because it wasn't grants, it was loans. And it came with, one of the restrictions was any country that accepted this aid had to allow US military bases to be built in their country.
Interesting caveat. I did not know that.
Anyway, there were other restrictions, but the people at CVSA, they were pretty progressive, and they said, you know, we just want to do this.
Yeah.
We don't want to get tied up in all of that.
You just wanted to help people, plain and simple.
Exactly. And we want to help them in the way they tell us is needed. And that's an important principle. There are many nonprofits that are set up by people in the US, either for communities in the US or for people abroad. And they decide, we're going to help people by doing this and bringing this to them. Well, those people might say, you know, that really isn't what we need. What we need is this, not that. And you have to be able to listen to that and abide by that to really be effective.
You are so spot on with that, actually, because some of the work I'm doing recently has to do with community outreach and actually listening to what the community wants versus what they're being told they should want. And it's like, we have to start listening to the people a little more closely.
Exactly.
Very important.
A short, really good example. There's a farm worker organization out in Long Island, New York. And there's an organization there now that's in our catalog, Invest Yourself, that's organizing seasonal and migrant farm workers and the poor community in general. Before they were there and started organizing, there was a very concerned, genuinely concerned group of, I think it was women voters or some civic organization of women. And they visited the farm labor camps. that are in Long Island. People often don't know there's farm labor camps there because it's like, the vacation land for the rich.
I think of the Hamptons. I mean, that's one of them.
Well, right in Southampton, there are farm worker camps. And they're hidden behind the trees down the dirt road. And labor camps are not pretty. They're pretty awful places to live. They're barracks, with bunk beds, steel bunk beds, and open, washing facilities and toilet facilities, et cetera. They're not humane. And at that time, migrant families would come up the whole East Coast stream, start in Florida with the oranges, go to the Carolinas for the peaches and so on. And they'd end up in Long Island to do the potatoes and other crops. And it was families. Well, these women saw the camps and they said, oh my goodness, it's terrible that women and children are living in these camps. So they passed a local ordinance that said women and children could not live in these camps, men only. They never asked the farm workers, what do you want? And what that did was actually made it worse.
Yeah, where are the women and children going to go?
But it split up the families. It meant that the men had to leave the families behind. It's just that, there's so many examples, but that's one.
I mean, good in theory, poor in execution. So, I mean, I think they had the right idea. They just poorly executed it.
Yeah, it's got to be the people who are in the situation that make the decision.
Absolutely. Oh no, I fully agree with that. And with CVSA, I mean, you guys have a book, Invest Yourself.
Correct.
And I believe Jennifer's going to be talking about this particular book, which is quite thick.
Yes.
This is a guide to action, and you also have a quarterly newsletter. So please, Jennifer, take the stage on this one.
Yeah. So with the efforts of CVSA volunteers who come from all walks of life and all have a common interest in our mission and objectives, CVSA has been able to publish an updated edition every few years of Invest Yourself, a Guide to Action, which is a catalog of volunteer opportunities which has already been mentioned, non-governmental, community-based organizations throughout the U.S. and some that are also international. And they're the ones that are engaged with their communities, materially taking action, helping them. And you just showed the most
It's a great book. I mean, there's a lot in it. My favorite was Great Old Broads for Wilderness. I'm like, that is a great title for a nonprofit.
We love that title. And they're a great group. It's all volunteer. They're not necessarily working as full-time volunteers. These are busy women, and they put some time into dealing with this. But they do they're in I think 11 different states. 18 different states. They have chapters, and they go out into the wilderness, desert, forests, prairies, whatever. And they scope it out to see what's not being taken care of or what's being eroded. And they contact the appropriate agencies and say, this needs to be repaired. This needs to be protected. And they do. And they go to Washington and they lobby for protection of public lands. They're amazing. And I love the name too.
The name is found. And actually, protecting our outdoor space, our wilderness, whatever people want to call it, we do have to maintain these things. You can't just, ignore it. Trails have to be maintained. I myself, I was with someone who claimed he knew where he was going, and we got very, very lost in New Hampshire because the trail was not maintained. Yeah. Obviously, we found our way out. But it's important that these things take place. You have to maintain these things.
Yeah. But there's examples if you want.
I mean, it's also healthcare and legal justice is huge, especially nowadays.
Yeah. No, there's several that deal with legal justice, everything from migrant rights to just the legal problems of working people. There's a very interesting statistic that I've learned from a couple of these groups, which is that, particularly in New York, but I think it's the case in California, 98% of the people who are charged with crimes, misdemeanors, whatever, who are poor, 98% of them are instructed by their attorneys, who are usually what they call them, the state paid
public defenders.
98% of them are advised to just plea bargain, and they never get to go to trial. So they end up having to decide to plead guilty to something they did not do because they're poor, because they can't afford an attorney. And the attorneys given to them by the state have 300 cases at once, or they're overwhelmed. They have no time to collect evidence, no time to do trials. So they just say, just plead guilty to this. I'll bargain it down and it's over. But then you have a record.
Yeah.
Plus, it's a constitutional right to, when you're charged with something, to have a speedy trial with a jury of your peers.
Yeah.
And that right is not being materialized. Anyway,
Yep.
you learn many things from these organizations.
Right. I'll chime in now, just because of sake of time.
Okay.
Because we can keep going on. There's so many.
No, please.
There are hundreds of them, and we keep finding more, which is why this is like the most recent addition. You know, you can show like the one from 1977.
77 looked like this. It was this small. So they keep getting bigger.
And more people calling to action, which is important.
Right.
Yes. And so in terms of the context of 𝑕vestorself, we showcase what the organizations are doing, the kinds of volunteers that they're looking for, their location, and a means of communicating with them.
Mm-hmm.
But what makes it really unique is the type of organizations that
Mm-hmm.
are compiled in it, which we already have discussed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an amazing, I mean, and it's really well organized, folks. If you can just get yourself a copy of the book, it is very well organized in the indices of what you're looking for. So you don't have to go hunting through and find out, oh, I'm looking for something specific. It's all organized. It is very well organized.
Thank you.
And then most importantly, CVSA in 2013, you gained special consultative NGO status with the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. You try saying that fast.
Yes.
So you get to be the voice with the UN. So that's a wonderful goal that you guys have obtained.
Yes, we were very excited. And as you said, it means that we can attend conferences of all kinds. If we register in advance, we can request to speak. It's generally you get 3 minutes, but you can pack a lot in 3 minutes.
Yes.
We get to submit reports that are pertinent to whatever the conference is about. And we get to also, if you apply in advance, hold side events. When there's big conferences happening, you get a room, you hold a side event that highlights something particular that you want to highlight. And we have had exhibits in the halls of the General Assembly about our work during these exhibits. And the reason we're so excited is that we found there's no other non-government organization based in the US that is bringing into this international arena the voices of community-based organizations, disenfranchised people, to the UN arena. There's many US-based organizations that have the same status as we do, but their work is abroad, to do aid abroad. And there are some that, well, there's probably many that are also do work in the US, but they don't take the time to work, and it takes work and time to attend these things and get our voice heard and do reports, and get that into the discussions. So
it's a lot of work and a massive amount of data you're probably pulling together from multiple sources.
Yes, we try not to get overwhelmed and just parse it out.
Which you do well. I can clearly tell that you guys are doing things very well, because jumping 3 years forward, 2016,
Yes.
Community Education Campaign for the Implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals. That's pretty awesome that you guys got that as well. So if either one of you want to explain what a Sustainable Development Goal is for people who may not know what that is.
I will. Actually, could you grab one of the newsletters? In September 2015, all 193 countries that are members of the UN, including the US, after 3 years of negotiations that were inspired, originally like directed to be done out of the 2012 Earth Summit that was held in Rio de Janeiro. And it was 3 years of negotiations. September 2015, all 194 countries unanimously said, we each have to do these goals in our country and help each other do them globally.
Yes.
And I won't take the time to go through them all. They're in the centerfold of our newsletter, every issue, but they're also on our website. And this was the first time that anything was issued that wasn't going to be a UN program. It's a program that each government said they would do in their country. And it ties together what needs to be done to end poverty with what needs to be done with ending climate change and gaining access to affordable clean water and access to good health for everyone. I mean, it just ties it all together and deals with the systemic transformations needed.
Basic human rights.
Basic human rights, all of it. I mean, whenever people look at these goals, say, well, yeah, we need all of this. Yeah, right.
This is logical.
So we need this. And so we were ecstatic when it was unanimously agreed to, and Obama was there and the Pope was there, and it was like a very big deal. And the next day, not a single article in the New York Times about it.
Yeah.
No media coverage. And since that time, and we saw this by 2016, this wasn't going to be carried out by the US government because nothing had been said, no announcements, no one was appointed to start a committee to, start bringing in stakeholders and make a plan. Nothing was happening. So we started doing speaking engagements to churches, colleges, the groups that are in our book, just getting it out, say, hey, they agreed to do this. We need to keep them accountable. We need to spread the word. And to this day, 8 years later, there's still not a step taken by the US government. But whenever we go to the UN, they always speak up. And I've seen news conferences when they're at the G7 or the G20 or Davos, is that what it's called? They speak up and say the US is fully behind the 2030 SDGs, domestically and internationally. And we're looking at each other and saying, really? Like where? And so in 2023, we decided, since the US has given no reports, and it's the only developed industrial country that's given no reports, that we would write a people's report.
Love it.
And
good. Thank you for that.
So you can download it from our website on the homepage at the bottom.
That's fabulous. And I can't, I'm going to try to be nice. I'm really disappointed in the fact that our governments just all talk, no action, especially with this. And when people say, oh, climate change isn't real, fine. I'm not even going to have the argument anymore. I simply tell people, just try to do the right thing. Yeah. Try to do, cleaner air, cleaner water. That's not detrimental to anyone. So why wouldn't we focus on that? Why wouldn't we focus on making things just better? A little bit better. Yeah. A little bit cleaner. Because everyone says, oh, I remember when we could swim in this lake because it was crystal clear and now it's polluted. Okay, let's clean it up. Let's swim in that again. That would be great. And it's just these common logic. So I love the fact you actually just took the reins and said, you know what, y'all aren't doing it, so we're just going to do it for you. And we're going to get it done because, women get things done. I'll just throw that one out there.
I would just add to that, we actually can't achieve these goals if the government doesn't eventually also get on board.
Yeah, I know.
And that's the other reason why we did the community education campaign. None of the organizations, as fantastic as they are, who are in Invest Yourself or any group we meet, none of them can actually achieve their goals if there isn't a change in fundamental priorities and policies at government level, local, state or federal. I mean, the homeless organizations that provide services to the homeless alone, they're not going to be able to end what's causing the homelessness. There'll be many other policy changes. So that's why, and that's our main message when we do talk to groups, like why they should, in addition to what they're doing, promote the sustainable development goals in their community so that more people are aware of the fact that our government did promise to do these and get that kind of groundswell of push, like take them seriously. We do want these as a priority because we can't solve things by ourselves as volunteers, as nonprofits and so forth.
No, but you're getting the ball rolling and you're actually, you've made the plan for them. You did the work, you did the hard work for them. They just need to follow that momentum.
Yeah, they should listen to us.
They should. And you're doing this selflessly. I mean, a lot of other organizations are going to say, well, what's in it for me? What do I get out of it? And unfortunately, a lot of things that are funded, they are dragged out because they want to make more profit out of it. I get it. Yeah. Totally get it. Capitalism is fine. But you're actually just doing it for the right reasons of getting things done, getting these programs in place, getting people involved. letting people know that this is out here. I mean, this alone is so important that these organizations are in writing. You can find them. You can volunteer for them. It's in one simple place to find. And this little circle here, folks, in case you don't see it, those are the little circles for the SDG goals. It lets everybody know it's working together. Because doing it individually, we're not going to make it.
We can't. Yeah. You've got it absolutely spot on. Yes.
I try. I've been doing it for a while. Who are you looking, like, in your world, who are you looking to connect? I mean, obviously volunteers and donations, guys, please donate to CVSA. It's very important that they keep going. But who do you want to start connecting with and letting know that you're out there?
Great. Well, we are actually starting to put together a new edition of this for 2025. And so one pool, one constituency we're looking for more connections with is any more organizations that would like to be included.
Okay.
Please contact us. Community-based groups, non-government groups, if you have a program that substantially involves volunteers, full-time or part-time, and you're doing material work that has to do with any of these things, basic needs, we'd love to meet you and include you in the book.
And this is domestic and international?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
I'm just going to throw one out. So Jennifer, you said you're from Guatemala. One of my dear friends runs a 501c3 called Home for a Home, and it builds homes for people in Guatemala.
I recently heard about them.
Oh, fabulous. Yeah.
They're on our list to contact. But if you have a friend with them and you want to put her in touch with us, that's even better.
Oh yeah, no, my friend Joel, he's the executive director. He used to do the show with me before he got super busy, and now I just run it by myself. But he was one of my co-hosts on this 2 or 3 years ago. So yeah, he was just down there. He did a build himself. He volunteered and helped build someone's home just about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Terrific.
So, fabulous organization. And there's another person I know in Charlotte, North Carolina, that teaches high school kids about coding, so they can actually have some skills when they graduate high school.
That would be good.
I mean, it's just a skill set. So when you leave school, it's like, know what you liked it. Now you have a background in this.
Yeah.
And it's all volunteered.
Yeah. It's too bad that our public education system is so underfunded that things that actually would provide any kind of future for the students is often being defunded. And it's groups like that are picking up the slack. But
I know. I mean, poetry is great, but at some point, I need to know how to do my taxes.
Have to be able to add and read.
That would be great. I mean, learning how to file your taxes or learning how to balance your checkbook when you walk out the door of school, those are just some really great skills to have.
Yeah. No, it's good. No, we'd be happy to hear from them. From both of them.
Oh yeah, and they're wonderful. And I obviously, from what I do, I know a lot of people. I'm going to send them all your way because it is important that people get organized and invest yourself. I mean, this is a guide to action. It is so important that people have this in one simple place to find. And also the website, of course, will have everything as well.
Right.
But and the SDG goals are on the back.
Right.
See that? So it makes everything very, very easy. We like easy. Society as a whole likes things easy, so you guys have aced that one.
Okay.
What's the best way for people to contact both you, Susan, and you, Jennifer?
Yes. So we are also looking for volunteers to help with the copy editing and all the phone communication, et cetera, that takes to put this together. So anyone with any amount of time, you could be a college student, you could be retired, you could be from any walk of life, any age. We need the help. The way to contact us, I'll give you our phone number, and we have a website. And the phone number is 323-933-2872. And the website is www.cvsa-investyourself.org.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Thank you guys so much for everything that you do. Your work is extremely important, and your selflessness is commendable.
We have to all work together to build a better world. That's what it's about.
Absolutely. So thank you both, Jennifer and Susan, for your time today. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you very, very much.
Anytime. And please come back frequently with updates. What you're doing is frequently, as many times as you want. Open invite. So guys, I'm your host, Wendy Nystrom with Environmental Social Justice. Please check out CVSA. They are an excellent organization. Get a copy of the book. Do what you can. We're in this together. There is no one person in this. We all have to move forward together in this. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Thank you.